Hello, fellow Minecrafters. Gearsaw Studios here. Today, I'm going to show you how to build an iceberg house, because who wouldn't want to live on the snowy oceans? The land is pretty overrated anyways. However, before I begin, remember, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. So, with that, onto the tutorial. For our palette, we are going to be using dark oak planks, dark oak stripped logs, and ice, because the thing is with ice, it's a transparent block that can be used as a window on a pretty non-transparent iceberg. And the dark oak is just used to break up the blueness in the build. Snow, blue ice, and packed ice are going to be used since that's what the iceberg made out of. Then, of course, find a desirable iceberg. So this one is pretty spiky and cool looking, so I'm going to choose this one. So make sure that your iceberg has a pretty tall thing, or it's just big, and goes underwater partially. Otherwise, the second part of the build won't work. Also, try to make it close to an ice patch, so that way you can walk to shore or just a dock. Now, with your desirable iceberg, you should go up to it, and if it's not connected to ice, or if it's just not in a pretty icy location, I recommend building an ice bridge to it. So we have an ice patch here. So just start extending your closest ice patch over. It doesn't have to be too thick, but make sure to have it decently thick so that we can still get across and so it still looks natural. Also, take a look at the design of the iceberg. Well, the ice sheet, because you can see there's blotches of melted ice in it. So try to replicate that with your little ice sheet over to the iceberg. Now we have a cute little ice bridge going over. So that way, if you were to come from here, you could make another ice bridge, but it's just a safer travel because you can go by land, which is significantly faster. So once you have your ice bridge done, go onto the side of the iceberg and start punching out a doorway. So something you might notice instantly is icebergs are filled with water. So that's going to be something we're going to have to deal with, but it should not be too hard. Just make sure you have a couple pieces of cobblestone or netherrack, so that way you can claw stuff whenever. So now that we have an entrance punched out, use your stripped dark oak logs and start making a simple wall design. Then place down your door, and now we have part of an entrance. But of course, we should conceal it a little, so that way it looks better. Then what you should do is go on the inside and excavate a large area out. But be mindful of where the thing ends and begins, because you don't want to accidentally punch a hole through the entire iceberg. Now, I've excavated a decently sized area in this iceberg. So, we want to have a central area somewhere. So, I've chosen this spot, and what you should do is stand on like a lantern or another thin block in the middle, and just destroy everything around you to create some sort of sphere, because it will create a very nice looking center point. Of course, keep the floor level, otherwise you're going to have a pretty weird room. Now, we have a pretty cool spherical area, which is a cool trick I'd recommend while trying to make spheres, because it's only stretched one block. So, we have this area, and we should start digging out one area in one direction for a while, because the thing is, this room's kinda dark and doesn't have any natural light. So, if we dig long enough, eventually we will find natural light. But remember, at some points of the iceberg, you're going to have to do a lot of digging. So you might have to change direction to reach some of that good old natural light. So just dig out more passages and make sure that they can somehow get natural light or just a spot for a lantern. Now we have a nice window right here at the end of this passage. So the thing is with this iceberg, we want to keep as much packed ice as possible. But at the same time, we want to break up the build. So I tried doing a little window design right here, but you're going to have to go through some design iterations, because the thing is, you want to have some of that good old packed ice, but you're going to have to break up the build a little, which is why I've included dark oak stripped logs in the build. So, every corridor you see, you should try lining it with some dark oak stripped logs, because it's a good way to just make everything look better. So, try experimenting with various wall designs and see what works good. Then, once you have all of these set in, what you should do is connect them all up with the pillars where they connect up. So, I've reverted the design decision with the logs, and I've decided to just leave the wall design as dark oak, except in this area, where there's going to be ice. So, we do need some sort of corner block for these logs. So, I decided I'd go with polished diorite, which is a heavily underrated block, mainly because it got bad rap before 1.14, because its texture was trash before then. But you should really try using it. It's a very good texture. So we have these corridors, and now you have to do the floor. So the floor can be whatever you want, of course, but I recommend doing something with snow in the middle and possibly ice or wood on the middle, with the snow being the border. So what you should do is just line the floor with some good old snow. Now, with a pretty neat floor design, start expanding the iceberg a little more in this direction, because there's still more to do, such as a spot for an enchanting room. So, dig out this area over here. So, I've placed down the enchanting table, and we have a pretty decent room right here for our enchanting table. So, what you should do is decorate your enchanting table. Since this room was perfectly shaped, we don't have to stress too much about if our thing actually works, because with this setup right here, it's pretty obvious it's probably going to work. So, finish the ceiling up in here, and add a barrel somewhere. So, you could just add it anywhere, so I'm just going to add it right here, because that seems like it'll work good. So, now we have a pretty neat room. So, complete all the hallways you have that aren't finished. Now, with some of the finer details tuned up, like having this hallway actually made out of wood, we need to do the final details for this floor of the build. So, I recommend doing your furnace array. So, something along the lines of this, and now you have an insane smelting capacity, which means anything you get shall be smelted. Then, you need to make a way down. So, I'm going to dedicate this corner to going down. But here's a bit of a dilemma. It's very watery down here. So, if you don't want to build this underwater, then you can choose not to, because it is your build. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I am going to be using this underground section. So, do what you've been doing up the stairs, except, one, you need to find the edge of the iceberg. So, just keep digging underwater, which it's pretty dark down here, so I'm going to grab a lantern. So, you can use a lantern, and just start digging until you reach the end of the iceberg. So, this is going to be our storage room. So, dig out a hallway, and then drain up all the water. Now, we have a tunnel of sorts. So, what we should do is, we should make a wall design, but somehow incorporate blue ice, because that's what's common deep in these icebergs. So, of course, the water problem inside this build is still something we have to worry about. But we have this more frosty looking wall design. So, with this frostier wall design, start going up, because we're going to need a ladder in and out into this place. Then, decorate the ceiling how you've done for the rest of the build. I recommend maybe adding some support beams to make it just a little more formal looking. So, repeat your floor design you had above and replace the wall completely with barrels. So, I've decided to do the walls and ceiling with barrels, so that way we have an impressive amount of storage for a little iceberg. So, I've sealed off the water here with some ice. So, what you should do is, you should expand it and make sure that it looks a little less man-made and more natural looking. So that way it looks better from the outside. So if we were to go outside of this build, and if we were to go underwater and look at this, you'd see that it just looks like a little patch of ice, and it just so happens to have your base inside. So it's a pretty cool detail. So here we have our neat little iceberg house. A cute little entrance here. Go inside, and it's rather spacious. And there's one thing we should do. What we should do is we should go up here and just punch out a little bit of ice. Because the thing that I said about natural light earlier is we need more. So if we were to punch out some ice here, what we could do is we could add some more natural light. So just put some normal ice here in its place, and now we have a little bit of a sunroof. So this little detail kind of wraps up the build. We have this useless hallway that could be used for maybe a bed, so I might do that. We have the enchanting room, the furnaces, and of course our storage system. So wrap it up with all those neat little details like the bedroom. So with that little tour done, I've added those little details I mentioned. A cute little bedroom here, so that way we don't have phantoms swarming us. We have the sunroof up here, so that way we have more light. And we have some armor stands and paintings, so that way this thing looks a little more lived in. So I'd call that this build done. So with that, it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe, because it's the second to last day of Gearsaw, which means daily uploads shall cease soon. So with that, take care. Careful playing the profile pic game where you swap profile pics. You can get some weird confusion going on. Gearsaw out.